Only in Kentucky can a single county claim a town that sits at the bottom of a lake and a festival that celebrates the sweet potato. Hi, I'm Michael, and I'm learning a little bit more about Kentucky, one county at a time, all 120 of them. And today I'm learning about Marshall County. Marshall County is located in the Jackson Purchase region of Kentucky and today is home to about 32,000 people. Human history in this part of Kentucky begins long before any written records. Archaeologists have studied several sites in the county that reveal a complex society. Jonathan Creek Village and the Chambers site are two examples of Mississippian settlements. The people who lived there between the years 1000 and 1500 were farmers who grew corn on the ridgetops. They built houses and palisades to protect their communities. They also constructed earthen mounds that served as centers for their culture. By the time European explorers arrived, the Chickasaw Nation controlled this territory. In 1818, the United States government negotiated the Treaty of Tuscaloosa, where General Andrew Jackson and Governor Isaac Shelby met with Chickasaw leaders to buy the land. This purchase included all of the Kentucky west of the Tennessee River, and once the treaty was signed, the Chickasaw were forced to move the territory further west. This opened the region for settlers who were moving into the frontier from places like Virginia and Tennessee. The first settlers arrived around 1819. They established homes at river landings and near creek fords where the water was pretty easy to cross. And for the first 2 decades, this area was part of Callaway County. However, as the population grew, residents wanted a local government that was closer to their farms. So in June of 1842, the Kentucky legislature officially created Marshall County. It was the 92nd county formed in the state. They named the new jurisdiction for John Marshall, the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, who had died 7 years earlier. The town of Benton was established in 1842 to serve as the county seat. The founders named it for Thomas Hart Benton, a senator from Missouri who was pretty popular at the time. Benton was platted on a site that sat on the hills west of the Clarks River. These early years, the economy was based entirely on agriculture. Farmers in the lowlands focused on cotton and tobacco. They used flatboats to carry their crops down to the Tennessee River to ports in Paducah or maybe even New Orleans. This connection to the river made Marshall County a part of the Southern trade network. Well, when the Civil War began in 1861, Marshall County shared the sympathies of the Deep South. While the state of Kentucky attempted to remain pretty neutral, the residents of the Jackson Purchase were overwhelmingly pro-Confederate. Hundreds of local men left their farms to join the Confederate Army. Many of them served in the Orphan Brigade, which became a famous unit in the conflict. And because there were no major cities or railroads in the county at the time, it didn't really see that many large battles. However, the war still came to the doorstep of the residents. Because in March of 1864, the county saw a sharp skirmish near Benton. General Nathan Bedford Forrest was leading his cavalry through western Kentucky. He sent detachments into Marshall County to find horses for his men. These Confederate scouts clashed with Union cavalry in an area known as Sinkhole Hill. The fighting was brief but pretty intense. Throughout the war, Union forces periodically occupied the region to maintain control of the river. At one point, they actually imposed martial law and restricted trade, which led to shortages of both food and supplies for the local families. The years following the war were a period of growth and physical change. The railroad finally reached Marshall County in 1867. The Paducah and Elizabethtown Railroad built tracks through the eastern part of the county, and later, the Paducah, Tennessee, and Alabama line ran through the center of the county with stops in Hardin and Benton. And as you can imagine, these tracks changed the economy. Farmers no longer had to rely solely on the river to move their goods. Timber became a massive industry. One of the most successful towns during this era was Birmingham. It was located on the bank of the Tennessee River and served as a major port, and by the 1870s, Birmingham was a center for manufacturing. It had a stave mill that employed 200 people who made barrels. And the town was actually larger than the county seat of Benton and featured hotels, churches, and schools. It was named after the city in England because residents hoped to build an iron industry using local ore, just like Birmingham, England. However, this period of prosperity was also a time of violence and exclusion. In the early 1900s, a movement of night riders began to terrorize the black residents of the county. These white mobs were motivated by economic competition and racial animosity. In February 1908, they launched a series of raids on the black community in Birmingham. They shot residents and whipped families, ordering them to leave the county within 10 days. And so most of the black population fled to Paducah or across the river into Tennessee. By 1908, Marshall County had become a sundown county where African Americans weren't allowed to live or stay after dark. This legacy of exclusion lasted for decades and fundamentally changed the demographics of the county. The middle of the 20th century brought the most dramatic transformation in the history of the county. During the Great Depression, FDR created the Tennessee Valley Authority. The goal was to provide flood control and electricity to the rural South. In 1938, the TVA began construction on the Kentucky Dam near the village of Gilbertsville. This was a project of incredible scale. The dam would be over 8,000 feet long and 200 feet high. But to create the reservoir, the government had to purchase over 300,000 acres of land. This meant that entire communities had to move. The town of Birmingham sat directly in the area that would be flooded. Residents were forced to sell their homes and farms to the government, and the town was completely abandoned. And when the dam was finished in 1944, the rising water of Kentucky Lake submerged the entire city. Today, Birmingham is a ghost town at the bottom of the lake. When the water level is low during the winter, you can still see the remains of the streets and foundations of the buildings. The dam also forced the relocation of Gilbertsville. The original town site was destroyed by the construction, and a new community was built further west. When the dam was dedicated in October of 1945, President Harry Truman traveled to the county to give a speech. He stood on the massive structure and spoke about the power of the river being used for the benefit of the people. Kentucky Lake became the largest man-made lake in the eastern United States by surface area. It turned Marshall County into a destination for tourism and recreation. But the dam did more than just to create a lake. It created a whole new industrial boom. A local merchant named Luther Draffin realized that the cheap electricity from the dam could attract manufacturing. He worked to lure companies to the northern part of the county. Calvert City, which had been a quiet rail stop, was transformed into a center for the chemical industry. In the years following World War II, dozens of plants opened along the river. Companies like B.F. Goodrich and Penwalt built facilities to manufacture plastics and chemicals. By the 1950s, the industrial complex was the primary employer in the county. It brought thousands of jobs and a steady income to a region that had previously struggled with problems. This shift from farming to industry is reflected in the town of Draffinville, which was named for the family that helped bring the dam to the county. Today, these plants continue to produce materials that are shipped all over the world. A new investment by James Composites in 2026 shows that the industrial park in Calvert City is still growing very much. Transportation infrastructure continued to evolve to support this industry. In the 1960s, the state routed I-24 through the northern part of the county. This connected Marshall County to major cities like St. Louis and Nashville. The county also relied on the Egner's Ferry Bridge to cross Kentucky Lake. This bridge was originally built in 1932. It was a narrow structure that had to be raised in 1943 to clear the rising water of the new lake. In January 2012, the bridge became the site of a national news story. A massive cargo ship called the Delta Mariner was traveling down the river. It was carrying components for space rockets. Well, the pilot took the ship into the wrong channel and the vessel struck the bridge. A main span of the bridge collapsed and fell onto the deck of the ship. Several cars were on the bridge at the time, and one truck stopped only 5 feet from the edge. Miraculously, no one was killed or injured. But the collapse cut off a major artery for the county, forcing residents to take long detours for months. The state worked quickly to repair the bridge and eventually built a modern 4-lane replacement that opened in 2016. Despite all the industrial change, Marshall County has held on to its unique cultural traditions. One of the most famous is Tater Day in Benton. This festival began in 1843 as a day for farmers to trade sweet potato slips. It's the only festival in the world dedicated to the sweet potato, supposedly. Every April, thousands of people gather in Benton for a parade, potato eating contest, and a market. It's the oldest continuous trade day in the United States. The county also preserves a rare musical tradition known as the Big Singing. On the fourth Sunday of every May, people gather at the courthouse in Benton. They sing from a book called the Southern Harmony, which uses a system of shape notes to teach music. This tradition started in 1884. It's the only regular event in the world that uses this specific book. This practice has been recognized by historians as a vital piece of American folk culture. The county has also been a place for recreation and leisure. For years, families visited the Kaintuck Territory theme park near Benton. It was an Old West town with a steam train and staged gunfights. Although the park closed in the 1970s, it remains a fond memory for many residents. And today, many people visit the Cherokee State Park near Aurora. But when it first opened in 1951, it was the first state park in the South designated only for black guests. It was built by the TVA during the era of segregation to provide a place for African American families so that they can actually enjoy the lake as well. And today it's part of the Ken Lake State Resort Park and listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The recent history of the county has been marked by both growth and tragedy. In January 2018, the community was shaken by a shooting at Marshall County High School. 2 students were killed and many others injured. The counties also faced natural disasters, such as the one in December 2021, where a powerful tornado ripped through the town of Bryansburg and the surrounding countryside. The county has produced notable folks who have made their mark on the world. Robert H. Grubbs was born in the community of Possum Trot. He grew up on a farm and went on to become a chemist. In 2005, he won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for his work on chemical reactions. Shelby McCallum was another influential resident. He served as the Speaker of the Kentucky House of Representatives and was instrumental in the construction of the Purchase Parkway. So, that's Marshall County. What'd I get wrong this time?